Right, another plasma cutter by Arccaptain. Now we seem to step it up a little. Let's see what they got. They got a ground, looks like about 10 feet. A nice looking torch, nice looking handle too, really nice. A nice looking dust protector with the logo on it. Gotta like that. The infamous Chinese hose for who knows what. The odd looking hose clamps, which are useless. And this kind of a carrying strap thing if you needed to carry it over your shoulder. Really sharp looking machine though. It's nice looking. It's already assembled. Last one I got didn't have this on it, but this one doesn't have the air fitting in it. So I've got to put one on it. That's okay. But very simple. Nice design here. What's this? It's got some lettering on there. It says 55A, but I think that must come off. 5 amp, 1 knob, mode 120, 240. Just hook it up and go. Basically, very simple. Cool thing, ANSI certified. Yeah, it's always good to see that. Yes, and it does peel off of there. I knew it would. And what I was getting to is Bluetooth technology. Let's see what that is. So check it out. Connection successful. So how do you do that? 2T, 4T. Okay. Okay. Tells us how to do our job. And then we got cutting current 30 amps. Let's blast it up to 55. Oh, look at that. Look at it. Let's do this. Wait, is it going down? Oh, yeah. Oh, look at that. I'm doing it with my phone. That's pretty sweet. Okay. And then it's got operation mode, post gas time. Okay, that's cool. I don't like it to keep doing that. I just put it at 1 second. The last machine I have and this one both had this post gas thing that it'll run the air afterwards. So it's kind of cool. If you want to run your air longer, you can use it to kind of cool the metal off, kind of blow over it a little bit, because you'll let off the trigger and the electrode won't be hot anymore, but it'll just blow air, and you can kind of blow off everything, let it cool down. So that's kind of neat, but I don't really like that myself. Cool. But we've got it set, cranked up with the app. Pretty neat. Right, so a lot of you guys might know this is a Pilot Arc machine. I'll show you what that is real quick right here. What the Pilot Arc is you don't need to be touching the metal, and you see how it blows that flame off without touching the metal. Most of them you have to touch the metal for it to start, and with this one you don't, or it has a little arc type thing that, you know, I guess they call that a high frequency or something like that, where it's you don't have to touch it, but it just makes a little arc, and that's what starts it. You have to be right next to the metal. This one you can just do it wide open, and you can blow through Bondo, you can blow through thick paint, bad rust, kind of clean it off a little bit with that flame, and it makes it a lot easier to cut. So only ones I like are the Pilot Arc ones now. I won't get the other kind, so spend the little bit of extra money. Really will help you later on. Okay, so we're going to get right to it. We're going to go straight to 220. We've got it hooked up to 220 right now, and I'm going to cut through this, and we're going to see how quick this thing goes through. This is 1/4 inch steel. 1/4 inch steel. Here's another plasma cut from a different plasma cutter. Pretty good. This was from another plasma cutter with an old tip. Brand new, never used it before. Let's go straight right into the most difficult thing to cut. And usually I think plasma cutters are the best for sheet metal. For thick steel, you know, they work good for just rough cutting. I don't really particularly like them for doing straight, nice, clean cuts on thick steel. 1/8 inch is fine. I'll use them for that. 1/4 inch is about as far as I usually go. Anything thicker than that, trying to cut it clean, you're better off using some sort of a saw. But anyway, just to cut things apart, yeah, they're great for that too, like using a cutting torch. Right, guys, most of these I've used are pretty much the same, but this one actually seems to go through thick steel a lot easier than some of the other ones I've gone through. It just cut right through that like it was nothing. Really, I didn't have to go over it twice. I just went over it pretty much once. I mean, we can cut off this end here. I'll cut off this little piece here and we'll just see. I'll show you how. And it just blows right through that. All right, so just about completely slagless on aluminum. That's actually pretty amazing. That might be a little bit better than some of the others I've used. I mean, everything I've gotten Best Arc has been a little bit better. A little more money, of course, a little bit better. You get what you pay for. So at 55 amps, I can even cut designs with this really easily. I like to leave them up on a high amperage, even though you don't really need it. All right, so that's it for the 220. This thing's flawless at 220. As good as any. It's probably one of the best ones I've used. Again, like I said, it's a little more money than the others, so it's up to you. The other ones work okay, and I'm not saying there's anything bad about them. This one's just an edge better. So anyway, so far so good. Let's try the old 110 and see if it even works on that. A lot of them, some of them don't work very good at all, and maybe this one will work pretty amazing. All right, we'll try it. So again, guys, a lot of these will only go up to 35 amps on there, and that's pretty standard. And a lot of times at 35 amps, they'll blow the breaker on a 20 amp breaker, just so you know. So if you use it a lot, it might end up blowing the breaker. These things really like 220. If you just need one and you don't have 220 yet, it'll work. It's just, you're gonna have voids in your cuts a little bit because you're not gonna have enough amperage. Like I said, I crank them up all the way and use them, but we're gonna try some on this and see how it goes. And not the fault of the machine, guys. I have to have a nice heavy duty extension cord. That's a 10 gauge extension cord. I hooked it up to this one, okay, and it's pretty big, but the breaker on it was kept on tripping. So you got to have good power to it if you're going to use 110 still. You know, you can't just have a little bitty extension cord. So I'm showing you that. If you think, oh yeah, I'm going to use one of those little dollar store 100 footers or whatever they are, it ain't going to work. So this worked flawless. This cut here is basically a nice slagless cut, really clean. You can't go wrong with it, guys. This thing really cuts good. Let's cut some aluminum real quick. We should cut that no problem, and then we'll see what it does. We'll try the 1/4 inch just for fun. I don't think it's going to do it, but I'm not on 110, no way. But we'll just show you that there's limitations on 110. These things work great on 220, really good on 220. 110, you can do a lot of cutting with it. You know, like I've had to do cutting on a trailer, and like I did cutting where I had a trailer, it was out further in the yard and stuff like that, and I had to use 110, and they work great, but they just have a lot of limitations, you know, and it would blow breakers every once in a while. So if you can really, maybe I'll put a link in the description for a 220 extension cord. You can get them on Amazon, and that's really the way to go. Get like a 50-footer. But you know, there's times when you're gonna need it on 110, but it's just not gonna do the same thing it does on 220. You got half the amperage, and it's gonna blow the breaker, especially if you have a smaller extension cord. You know, I'm using a 10 gauge just to get enough amps to it. All right, perfect example. Again, it gets cut perfectly on the aluminum, and it's cutting through this, but I have to go back and forth a lot. And that's, if you saw the really ugly cut that I had before, I just remembered what I was doing. I was using 110 to cut one of these, and of course the breaker blew. So if you're running it at full amperage, you're only going to get it for so long. You're going to go ahead and reset the breaker. You can see there, look, she popped. All right, so turn it back on. And guys, that's normal. That's not the machine. That's what you have to do if you're going to cut with 110. You're going to break, you're going to blow breakers, or you're going to turn down the amperage. And if you turn down the amperage, you get slaggier cuts. So it is what it is. We'll cut this off. We'll look at it. All right, guys, for 110, that's pretty impressive. That's really not bad. That's not a bad cut for 110. It got through it. I mean, on 110, I've cut through 1/8 inch like here, no problem with one of those similar plasma cutters. So I'm sure it'll cut through that. If it cuts through this, it's going to cut through that a little easier. 1/8 inches, usually you can do that on 110 without too much trouble, but you're probably going to have to turn it down from 30 to about 30, 29 or something like that to be able to have it work. And it'll work, but you're going to have a lot of voids. So you're going to have to go slower. You have to cut slower. You can't cut at the same speed. That's why I say 220 it. You can blast through cuts a lot faster, run the amperage all the way up. That's what I usually do. And just, you know, go really fast when you're doing it. So the whole idea is to save time. So 220 is the way to go. Well, I gotta say, it's an excellent machine. There's good and bad to it. One of the best things about it, the ability for it to cut is pretty amazing. I gotta tell you, the cutting I was pretty impressed with this one. The size of it is nice and small. A lot of them are pretty small. This one's a little bit larger than the other one I just reviewed, I think is a Jaiwei something, I can't even say it, but if you see that review, this one's a little bit bigger than that. The only thing I find a little bit kind of irritating is you got to use the app to adjust the post flow on it. But some of you guys might think that's great. You know, you use the app, you have to use the app to adjust the post flow, that I can tell. I couldn't find a way to do it without it. But that's not really that big of a deal. The cutting on it was probably a little bit better than some of the others I've used. So I'd say this thing's like definitely a one-up, a little more expensive than the others, some of them, but still not expensive. It's still inexpensive for what it is. And I believe they have a discount code for you guys. Check the link in the description. They add the discount in. Maybe it's comparably priced to the others, and if it is, definitely I would just, this one here is definitely a little better so far. And on 220, again, it's really good. Again, you guys, if you're using these things on 220, you're gonna find they just really work good. And it has a pilot arc. It likes to burn through everything. It is a little irritating when you're on 110 running into the breaker thing. It's not the machine's fault. You know, if you have a 30 amp 110, most people don't. A lot of people have 15 amp. You know, I got 20 amp, and if you only have a 15 amp, you're going to get really irritated. And it's, again, that's not the machine's fault. All of the machine. I don't care which one you buy. If you have only a 15 amp breaker, you know, you need at least a 20 amp breaker for it, okay? And a good extension cord for it to work properly. So anyway, I say it's definitely on the buy list. I mean, it's a fantastic machine. Can't see anything wrong with it. Other than the app thing is kind of cool, but it's also a little bit irritating to guys like me who are just not really technology guy. I don't want a bunch of apps. But a lot of the younger guys love that stuff. So anyway, it's really neat. I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Hope you enjoyed this one. Please like, share, and subscribe.